Hey, I'm Lisa Faye, and today I'm going to show you how you can make a moss-covered initial for your home decor, just like this one. You can use any initial. I used an L because my name is Lisa. This was really easy to do. I'd say that the most challenging part was going around the curves, but I'll show you how to do that. And even that was pretty easy to do. It just was a little bit time consuming. Go slowly, just take your time with it. I think this whole project took me about 90 minutes. And that's just because my initial happens to be particularly ornate here. It would vary according to what initial you have, but it was still really simple, and I am so happy with how this turned out. You could use this initial on a shelf, a table, or hanging on a wall, or even like build a wreath around it, and I think it would be really cool. Please check out my other videos where I've covered other things in moss. I have really enjoyed this whole moss covering crafting experience. I just really love the aesthetic of it, and it's been a lot of fun to work with as well. I'll put links in the description for all of the things you'll need for this project. I'm using the Super Moss brand moss sheet. This is so easy to work with. I love it. I'm also using my glue gun, my favorite pair of scissors. They're really sharp. They're easy to use and don't give me blisters. And I'm using this script initial that I got off of Amazon. You can use any initial you would like. So I take the moss sheet out of its packaging and remove this backing sheet of tissue paper. I just find that it adheres better afterwards. I want to position my letter in the corner so that I can salvage as much of the extra pieces of moss as possible for other projects. Here's where I made a mistake. This was a big mistake, and going forward, I am not making this mistake again. I first tried to use glue that actually had to dry. Here I am just using like a tacky glue, and I would not recommend this. I would recommend using hot glue more than anything else. I've had great success using the moss sheets with the hot glue. With any other glue that has to dry, I do not recommend it. It was such a mess. I had to end up going back and using hot glue afterwards in a lot of the places where this did not adhere properly, and it just took forever to dry. So don't make this mistake. Anyway, it worked out fine in the end here, but it was just a little bit of extra work. It wasn't my favorite. If I had to do it over again, I would not use that glue. I would just use the hot glue. So here I am cutting the moss sheet roughly to the shape of the initial, and just making sure that the moss will fold over and be, form-fitting to the letter when all is said and done. I also am trying to remove a lot of the excess bulk of the moss sheet as I'm doing this, because you don't want it to be bulky or lumpy or have a lot of excess material. You want to make sure that you're covering it adequately, but not overlapping a lot. You don't want like layer of moss over another layer of moss. At least not in that many places, if that makes sense. You'll kind of get a feel for it as you're working with it. Here's where I started using the hot glue, and as I'm going, I'm just kind of gluing a little tiny section at a time and wrapping the moss around, and then trimming it in the back just to kind of get rid of, like I said before, the extra bulk. It's pretty easy to do, and once I started working with it, I figured out what worked for me and how much I needed to trim and how big of a section I wanted to work with at a time. When you're going around curves, you also need to take a little bit of extra care with the notches, because you want it to be form-fitting to the curve. So just really take your time and be patient and work with it, and just keep trimming, really. I mean, like, for me, that's probably my biggest tip, is to just keep trimming the moss. And like, don't be afraid of trimming off too much, because worst case scenario, if there's a gap, you can just fill it in with a little scrap piece of moss later on down the road. And I'm just going to continue here working away at the project for a bit, as you can see. And in a moment, I am going to just go ahead and cut all of the notches into the moss sheet, because at that point on working on this project, I kind of figured out what the spacing needed to be. And yeah, so you'll just see me doing that. So while I'm doing that, I'd like to just talk for a minute about the moss in general and other projects that I've made with it. This moss has just been an absolute delight to work with. I thought it would be like a pretty neat thing when I first saw it in the store, but I did not anticipate how much I actually would enjoy working with it and how much more I wanted to do once I started working with it. It's kind of addictive, and it's really just a fun springtime sort of whimsical look to everything, kind of a woodland fairy type of feel. And so I really got a little addicted to it. Please check out my other videos here on YouTube if you haven't already. I've covered other things in moss. I did a moss covered picture frame. I also did like a block letter L. So this is the script letter L. I also did one that's just like a capital block letter. And I also did a little bird, like a pick that you can put inside of a plant. And that was super fun and turned out really cute. And at the time of shooting this video here and recording this voiceover, I have not yet made a couple other projects that I'm planning on with the moss. But if it's a ways in the future that you're watching this video, those videos might be up on my YouTube channel as well. So I do have some other things planned out for the future for the moss, including a wreath and covering a few other household objects with moss too. It's really an inexpensive project, I think, especially for how much of a visual impact it has and how unique everything is. And just, I don't know. I just think it really has a good bang for its buck. And yeah, that's not to say that this is like a cheap project, because there is still a cost to it. You know, you have the cost of your glue sticks, you have the cost of the letter. I think that this wooden letter was around $18, I think, because I special ordered it. And the moss sheet itself was maybe, I want to say around 12. So it's not like it's a cheap project, but it's relatively inexpensive for what you get, at least in my opinion, and it's totally customizable. And so for me, I'm kind of at the point where I've accepted that there's certain projects in life that I want to do and things that I want to make where there's just going to be a cost associated with doing it right and doing it with the materials that I want to use. And so, you know, you can't always achieve your desired result with, you know, Dollar Tree materials. Sometimes you need something that's a step up from that. And that's why I do think that for certain projects, I like spending a little bit more, a few dollars more here and there. I do still try to look for bargains, of course, but sometimes you do just have to spring for a little bit extra. I will coupon as much as I can. I look for sales prices. I'll use my rewards vouchers at Michael's and shop the clearance section and look online for better deals on things as well. But sometimes I'm just willing to spend a little bit more to get the results that I want. So here I am trimming some of the extra bulk on the back and just doing a little close-up here of wrapping the moss around. And this is really the whole idea behind this, and the technique and everything that you're doing for a project like this. It's a little bit, I think it's a little bit daunting at first when you're trying to first figure out how to make it all work, but once you start doing it, it goes pretty smoothly. And here's the finished result. As you can see, there's a few larger chunks of moss that are hanging off, and I chose to trim those just to kind of clean it up a little bit. I didn't trim all of them, but just the big ones that were hanging off to make it look a little bit more streamlined. And then I decided, you know what, I'm just going to cover up the back, all of the bare spots, just for kicks, just to kind of give it a little bit more of a clean cleaned up and finished off look, so I used some of my scraps. And if you have a spot on the side or the front that is a little bit bare as well, you can use this same technique and fill in the spots there. And here we go. Here is our finished product. You could hang this initial on a wall. You could put it on a tabletop, make it into a wreath. Really, there's a lot of versatility in this type of project. Have you ever covered anything in moss, or would you cover something in moss? Please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I hope to see you back here again soon. Bye.